What's up, guys? This is Felipe for runones.com, and today I'm gonna be starting a new video series, which is gonna be called Moving Up, and it's gonna be a bunch of live Zoom play videos where I'm gonna be moving up through stakes. So the first video of the series is gonna be at 25 NL, and then I'm gonna play 50 NL, 100 NL, and finish it at 200 NL, and we're gonna try to find overall things that people are doing differently and how we can exploit people more at the smaller stakes and play a little bit more balanced in the higher stakes. I'm going to be playing without a HUD because I still haven't solved my problem with my Holden Manager. So I still have to play on my Mac, and there's still no HUD for Zoom for Mac up to this day, which I still can't believe it. And so we're gonna be, but it wouldn't make any real difference because I don't have any hands on the 25 NL player pool, and there's like 600 players playing every hour, so I wouldn't be able to get any important hand sample on the players, so it wouldn't make a big difference. So we're gonna start to look for things that we can do differently, and so let's get into the action. So the first thing that I'm probably gonna start adjusting, even without knowing how the player pool is playing, is I'm gonna be playing opening a little bit more of a wider range on the button and opening to a min raise because I expect people to not defend enough. I'm also gonna open smaller on the cutoff because of that as well. King 7 here, I think I'm gonna bet. He's gonna check call with a bunch of worse hands like 9-7, 6-5, 7-5, 10-7. He'll sometimes have a better hand like 8-9 or something, but a lot of the times we're ahead with King 7. If I had a worse kicker, I'd probably just check back. Now I'm obviously gonna go for it. 3 streets here. So as I was saying, I'm going to be opening a little wider from the button and min raising because I expect people to defend way less than they should be defending versus a min raise from the big blind. And the same for the cutoff. I don't expect to get 3-bet as much from the button and flat it as much from the big blind. 10 jack suited here, I'm going to flat. There's a guy without a full stack here, and I expect the feud overall to have much more fish. And for the same reasons, I'm gonna 3-bet queens instead of just flatting. Versus under the gun, which I'll sometimes do versus regs. If I'm playing at 200 and out here and there's a aggressive reg here, I usually just have a 3-betting range from the small blind and try to not flat much. This is a fine hand to float out of position with. I have a lot of backdoor stuff. And this shouldn't be a board he should be going too crazy on with bluffing. And on a river like that, I don't need to bet really big. He's not going to have a queen very often. The way he played an ace high hand, he should be checking back the flop a lot. And I can't have too many missed bluffs here, missed draws here. Like, the only things I can be bluffing are my out of position floats, which are going to be very few combos that don't hit this board on the river. So yeah, you can bet like half pot here and you should be folding a lot of things. Queens, I'm just gonna check back here, obviously on the river. The king 7 hand, when he check min raises the turn, he's wrapping a very strong range. Usually hands like that, like check calls as the pre-flop raiser and then check min raise the turn. And I see a line like that in small stakes. It usually means a very nutty hand. But we had more than enough pot odds to call and try to hit a full house. And sometimes we're still ahead. People might do this with like king 6, for example. So we beat a slight part of his range. And when we're ahead, we still have like... when we're behind, we still have our nutted outs. I'm just gonna check fold the ace-8 suited here. With this guy flatting on the cutoff, I expect his range to have a lot of pocket pairs, and I don't have too many good barreling opportunities. Don't have too many good blockers, and nothing going my way here. Now I like to check call. I think I could bet, but I think check calling is good because I think that once he checks back the flop here, he's too often gonna have like if he's got a smaller pair, he's usually gonna just bet the turn. Like if he's got like 6s, he's probably gonna bet the turn. At this point, I can value bet. There's the smaller stack here. I think 3-betting queen 10 off is fine. Overall, it's a little too loose, but this king 8 off, I think I should have opened. It's going to be one of the things that I'm going to be adjusting at 25 and now. I'm probably going to open a very wide range from the small blind because I just don't expect him to defend enough and my still to be auto-profiting a lot of the times. So I'm going to be opening a very wide range, which should include king 8 off there. The ace 10 off is another hand that I can call with if big blind's not a good rag. It's going to be squeezing much, but I have a feeling, yeah, this guy is from Brazil. I think I know him from Brazilian forum, so he's a rag, I think. So I prefer 3-betting the ace 10 off here. There's the lead here. I'm probably just gonna kill once and fold later, depending on what card comes. On a queen, I think I just have to fold. We can beat only some straight draws like 8, 9 or something like that, but we have a blocker to that, making it a little bit less likely. I'm just gonna have a lot of king X when he plays it like that. So this is a hand that I'm usually folding, but I'm gonna start out by opening it, but with time we'll see if people are defending more than I expect them to. Six 4 off, I think I can raise it as a bluff here. The way I'm gonna approach my raise versus small blind complete here is I'm gonna have kind of a polarized range. Like I'm gonna do it with hands that don't have too much value on don't have too much value on seeing flop, so they're fine for like just taking down pre, and then hands that are actually for value that dominate the hands that is gonna be in calling with, and the hands in between I'm just gonna check back and realize my equity. The reason I bet the flop is that his range should be a little bit more capped than mine, and my hand needs a little bit of protection here, so I just intend on barreling and putting a lot of pressure on his presumable capped range. They're usually not gonna have ace jack, ace queen, ace king, aces, tens. Even ace 10 is probably not gonna link call here. Not that it's bad to link call with ace 10, I think it's fine if you have a linking strategy, but I don't expect this player here to be doing it. So because of that, I think I'm gonna just go for multiple barrels as a semi-bluff here with my 5 outs. We can make him fold 10x, or even some weak ace-x by the river. Because it's a very dry flop and there isn't too many draws I can have, it makes that my range isn't going to be too imbalanced. So at the beginning, while I don't know how people are going to be reacting to four bets, I'm just going to go up and flat ace king suited here. So what I was saying is that as I don't have too many bluffs that I'm going to be, the board is too dry that I don't have anything with too much equity that I want to be triple barreling with, the 4-6 becomes a good candidate because I have my 5 outs, which is like the most I can have with a semi bluff on this flop. Like gutters have only 4 outs. So because of that, I think this becomes a good hand to be barreling with. The ace king here, I think I can 4-bet pre. Even though I'm not sure how people are gonna be 5-betting, how often they're gonna be doing that kind of thing. So I don't want to be 4-bet folding it, and that's why I flatted it. And because I expect this stakes to be much less aggressive, I wasn't sure that I could 4-bet call it off. But I think that it's very likely that with the way poker is evolving at 25 and now, we can probably stack off ace king suited here, but I'm just big blind pretty safely. So I think I could have 4-bet it. Also because I miss a lot of value by the hands that he might flat my 4-bet with some dominated things like king queen and ace queen and ace jack type hands that he might flat my 4-bet. As played, I think there's not much else I can do. That's pretty much the right line, I think. I'm not sure what to do with this SPR with this hand. I think I'm gonna check and then decide, maybe check shove, maybe check call. I just don't like bet calling with this hand, and it's too much equity to bet fold, so Now I'm just gonna go ahead and once he checks back, I'm just gonna bet big and probably bet the river. So the reason I don't see bet, if you guys didn't understand, is that the hand is not strong enough to bet call his shove, but it's a little too strong to bet fold. So because of that, it becomes a check. And then we can maybe check shove. The stacks are good for it. Then we let him maybe stab with something that would fold to our bet, like ace five of spades or something like that, or pocket sixes or something. Then we have some fold equity with our draw, or we can maybe even just check call because we have enough equity to continue this one bet. And we also still represent a lot of hands with showdown value when we take this line, and so when it goes check check, we have a pretty good bluff on river. So those are pretty good viable options, I think, to check call or check raise the flop. The ace 10 I would peel if I had a club in my hand. Without a club, it's a pretty easy fold on the flop. I might fold with the 10 of clubs as well. With the ace, I'm definitely peeling. I'm also going to be opening it a little wider from the cutoff and to a smaller sizing. At 200 and now I'm usually 3xing and playing a little tighter range, but here I don't expect to get 3-bet by the button very often. I expect the big blind to be defending much less than he should versus the sizing. So I think it's probably the best strategy at this limit. Here, we don't have any equity, no reason to do anything else other than c-bet and give up. King 3 I would defend versus a min raise versus a 2 point something X that I can't calculate with this weird blinds. I'm just gonna fold. Could 3-bet too, but I think I prefer to 3-bet a hand like that if it's like big blind or small blind or something like that, because I'm doing it just purely for blocker value, and its playability is just awful. So out of position where we get more flats and less 4-bets, I think we should be through betting hands that have better playability and we flop hands with more equity. So kings here is a hand that, with no reads, I think the best place to c-bet. Once you start developing reads that he's aggressive and likes to stab a lot when we check, it becomes a great candidate to check shove here, because we get some value from hands like ace queen with no heart that would fold, or like even like king queen with no heart, although we block some of those. That's gonna take a stab, and then the hands that we would stack by betting, we're gonna stack off anyway by check raising. But that's only gonna be true if we know that he's gonna be stabbing a lot. So if it's gonna be checking back a lot with those hands, and maybe checking back with some hands like ace jack with a heart or something like that would call our bet, we end up missing some value by checking. So with no reads, I'd prefer to just go ahead and bet get it in instead of check raising. I'm gonna take a quick break and pause the video and continue later. I'm just gonna finish these two hands here. Mine here I think should have c-bet a little bit bigger, like 1.20, because it's a board that people's range is gonna be kind of inelastic. If they have a pair plus draw, they're just gonna continue. So I should probably be betting a little bit bigger and building the pot up. 7-8 off is a hand that I like to through bet sometimes here from the big blind. And this is a board that is just gonna hit his calling range too much. It's gonna flop a lot of. It's gonna flop a lot of gutters and stuff that are gonna float, and having no equity at all and no good turns to barrel or anything, this becomes a pretty easy check fold, I think. And the king eight, you could see bet or check back the flop. I don't think it's gonna make a big difference. I think overall here at 25 and out, when we're trying to exploit people, we're just gonna get more value by checking back, because they're just gonna have missed this board a lot. So you're just gonna check fold too many hands, and we're not gonna get 3 streets of value from worse by betting. So we can just check back, and if he checks the turn, we can just bet turn and river and get the same amount of value that we would versus a hand like king deuce or something like that. And so we don't miss value from worse hands that call down, but we get extra value from a hand like maybe 6-5 of spades that might take a stab on the turn with no equity, or even like a gutter like 9-10. It's gonna be like he could bet turn and river to get me off something weak that I'm representing, and so I get 2 streets of value from that. So I think that overall checking back the flop is gonna show a much higher profit here. When we're playing more exploitatively versus a weaker field. Hey guys, I'm back. This ace queen hand, the small blind limped and I raised, and he called. And this 4's hand, there was a limp and the small blind raised to 5x and I called in the big blind. Ace-9 off is a hand that I sometimes like to 4-bet here, but I don't know. I think that people haven't been 3-betting too much, and so I'm gonna be 4-betting with a little less frequency as a bluff, and also have a little tighter of a range to 4-bet for value. At higher limits, I can sometimes 4-bet and get it in with 10s here, for example. And I think that here I'm just going to be flatting 10s, because people won't be 3-betting and 5-betting as aggressively. And so because of that, I'm also going to be 4-betting a little less often. So ace-jack here, it's tough to call profitably in higher stakes, because there's just not too many combos of hands that we can beat that call on the button versus UTG, and that won't have us beat now. But here it's especially versus a guy that don't have the full stack and is a chrome, I think. Is that a chrome? So that shows that he's somewhat likely to be a fish, and so he's going to have hands like 10-9 off in his pre-flop calling range a lot, and just a lot of stuff like that that we can still beat. So I can exploitatively just call turn river with a jack here, and his range is going to be pretty polarized here. He's either going to have a king that he hit the turn with, or it's going to have like jack 8 suited and queen 8 suited and 8-9 off sometimes, and that kind of thing. The 8-9 off is a hand that I usually fold, but I can open here because of how tight I think people have been playing. And so I'm gonna be opening a little wider from every position. On this flop, it's a pretty easy check back and pretty easy call this turn. Just take the hand to showdown. I think we're gonna be winning something like 30-something% of the time here versus his line on the river. Especially because of some timing tells, like he just checked the river too quickly. I expect people to, if they're bluffing the turn, they're gonna be at least considering bluffing the river. They're not just gonna be snap bluffing this turn and snap giving up on the river. So when he snap checks, I expect him to have showdown value somewhat often. But there's no reason to turn my hand into a bluff. He's definitely going to be calling with some 10x and definitely can't make any better hands fold, I think. My nut flush here, I'm just going to check call 3 streets and 2 streets actually, and check raise the river. It's not a board that I want to be check raising as a bluff that often. And so I'm kind of not going to have a check raising range. I'm just going to check call my continuing range, my entire continuing range. Here I can stab, I think. And I don't think I'm going to be stabbing here in higher stakes either, because people are going to be check calling way too many combos of hands like ace high and stuff, and are not going to be check folding enough. I think you're going to be c-betting more aggressively and check folding less often. But here I expect people to play passively enough that I can just take a stab here and show an immediate profit. The ace-10 I would still check shove even with the board pairing, because I expect people to overvalue trips here. So like if I check shove, ace-king is obviously just a bluff catcher, but I don't think people are gonna have that kind of notion at 25 and out as much as they will in higher stakes. So I think I can like check shove the river and get snap called by ace king a lot and king queen. So I think I can do it for value with my nut flush for sure, and maybe even some weaker flushes as well. Jacks are just a flat here. It's going pretty easy. Check back. Show the hand down. At this point, I think I can maybe value bet. He will definitely bet a 6, a 7, or an overpair up to this point. I'm just gonna bet like 35 cents, and maybe he'll call me out of curiosity with like king jack or something. So this is a spot that I could turn my jacks into a bluff if I know that his range is going to be kings and queens exactly, like very frequently when he checks back on the ace. but I definitely can't be sure of that. I have to have some very deep reads that he's gonna bet a hand like ace queen on the turn every time, because a lot of players will check it back now. And so I just have to check for the river, I think. And also some players might not be able to fold kings. So it's such a specific thing that it's probably never gonna be good to turn your jacks into a bluff here. It's gotta be very, very specific reads, that, like, if you're a regular in a live game, there's sometimes you're gonna have a read that is that much accurate, because you just play with people like every day, the same people, and then you can have some reads like that and decide to bluff here, but usually you should just be check folding. Queen 3 off is a fold from the button, but I'll just open because people are over folding. Six, 7 suited is usually borderline UTG. I'm usually opening 7, 8 suited plus, or something like that. This is a spot that I don't have to be c-betting that big. On this board, but I don't think it's gonna be, like, people aren't gonna be floating much, and I don't have to worry about balance, and so I can bet smaller with my bluffs and a little bit bigger for value, because that way I can get more value versus hands like pocket eights here by inflating the pot a little bit more earlier. 6, 7 suited here is a hand that I can check call if I expect people to be more aggressive and stab with hands like king queen and king jack, then it becomes a good check call. But as I expect people to be a little bit more passive in these stakes, I think that c-betting is a little bit better, because I kind of prefer to protect. Like, if he's gonna bet king queen for me, then I'm fine with check calling, but if he's gonna check back with those hands just too often, I prefer to not let them realize their equity with their 6 outs and just protect my hand a little bit. And so I'll be betting with it here, c-betting with it here, and maybe check calling versus some other type of players, like at 100 an hour maybe. And on the turn, I can definitely check call, especially when he bets that small, because he can still have some hands that I beat. Like, he had 5, 8 suited, but he can have like ace 8, he can have a 10 and decide to bet, because people here aren't gonna have like a great notion on how to play post flops, so we can expect to be like, oh, he's not gonna bet with ace 10 because he's just gonna check back because there's no value, and it's not a bluff and it's not for value. People don't have a great grasp on like value and bluffing, and a lot of the times they're gonna be betting without a good reason to do so. And there's some other hands that I can beat here, like queen jack's gonna play this way. Any diamond draw is gonna play that way, like king 4 of diamonds you can have. And so I think I like to check call the turn here with my 2 pair. I'm gonna take another quick break, guys. Hey guys, I'm back. This isn't gonna bluff on the river. It's the bottom of my range at this point with jack high on this board, and I could still rep some things for value. And after he checks twice, it's really tough for him to have anything better than ace high there, which he could decide to call, but So the hand went, I opened the cutoff and he flatted and checked it through. Queen 9, I'm just gonna shove here. He's probably a fish playing from an iPhone, and he might not be able to fold any Queen X here. And it's also more likely that he won't check if he made a flush, for example. If it's a rag, then he'll probably just check his entire range on the river with that line, but from fishes you can usually expect them to don't lead the river if they make like a flush or something. Then tens I'm just gonna have to fold here. He's got a lot of ace-x in his range, opening from under the gun and c-betting this and checking the turn. There's a check raise here. I'm just gonna flat because most of the time his range is pretty strong and he's probably gonna get it in anyway. But sometimes you do find people doing some crazy stuff like that with some random air, especially fish players that want to be aggressive because they saw Dur on high stakes poker 3-betting and check raising or something like that. And so I think that by calling we allow him to continue bluffing, and when he's got the value part of his range, we're just gonna stack him anyway. Yeah, so he's not gonna fold ace king even if spade hits, and that way we get him to possibly continue bluffing on turns and rivers. Ace-8 suited here, I decided to call out of position just because his 3-bet was a little small, and with the pot odds I was getting, I thought Ace-8 suited would be a profitable call there. Now this is a pretty easy value bet because I still can have some bluffs like Queen Jack, Queen 10, and Jack 10 that I'll float the flop with, and club combos. So I can go ahead and bet and expect to get called by some things. Sometimes it's tough because if he has anything that is a king or lower and has showdown value, he probably should be checking back the flop, like with pocket jacks or king queen or something like that. So it's tough to find a hand that will actually call, and because of that, it might be best to check the river and let him maybe decide to bluff or something like that. But without reads, I think that it's best to bet here because he could definitely be c-betting flop with king x. Once you know that he's got this kind of that he's gonna check back and pot control with those types of hands, and you've got that read that he's playing like that, then you can check and let him bluff something, knowing that he's not gonna have anything to bluff catch with very often. There's some flipaments going here. I'm gonna show you guys with Brazilian players from our Brazilian forum called Mais EV. So here I just have to call at this point. I mean, I have the top of my range pretty much, and so versus the small blind range here, I think this isn't a good spot to see bet. Because it's gonna hit his range pretty hard and we don't really have much equity. So back to this hand, it's really tough to put him on anything. The only hand that kind of worries me is like King 9 or 8-9, but it's very likely that he would have stabbed at this point with those, either on the turn or the flop. And after I check 3 times, he might just decide that I don't have anything and decide to raise bluff, which is what he did. So having a jack at this point, it's too much top of my range. If I had a better jack, I would have bet the turn to bet 2 streets. I could even bet this spot to bet 2 streets, but I just thought it was better off letting him maybe try to bluff something like this on the turn and check call. And so, yeah, I have to call the river there. King 7 here, I'm probably just gonna bet twice for value. We can get called by 6x, which is pretty much the top of his range. Once he checks back the flop there, he could have a7 too, which beat us, but that's pretty much the only hand we're worried about, a7. Ace-8 here, I think the play is to call turn, fold river. At the river we have the bottom of our range. It's like the worst hand we're gonna call the turn and get to the river with, and we're gonna have some pairs that are gonna play this way that can bluff catch. So I think we should fold the ace high there. This is a pretty bad spot to be in. I think you just have to fold, even if there's much equity, I'm not sure. Once he overshoves, I'm never winning there. He's usually gonna have something like ace king here, so we're playing for the flush and the jack. But I'm not sure. If I had more time, I would calculate pot odds there. Maybe it was a call, I don't know. If we consider that he could have hands like king 10, then it becomes a pretty easy call. So yeah, I think it's a call, because if he's got like king 10 or 10-9, for example, or even ace 10, we still have the queen as out as well, and that's just going to be way too much equity. And some rare times he could have a hand like 7-8 of hearts or something like that we crush. So yeah, even versus a 4x pot shove on the turn, I think we have to call this. I'm not sure. You guys could give me your opinion on it. I'm gonna 3-bet the 9-10 suited here. Flat the ace king versus UTG. Maybe at 25 and out, it's better to 3-bet this, just because you're not going to be 4-bet bluff as often, and people are going to probably call more than they should. And so you're going to get enough value to be 3-betting it for value. People are going to call with ace jack and ace queen probably, and here I have to call again. We can beat a lot of his semi-bluffs here. You can have hands like king queen and ace queen that will barrel here, and we still have a lot of outs for some of his value hands. He could also be barreling 8-9 suited, and his flush draws like ace-5 of diamonds, for example, that we beat. I'm gonna raise pretty big now because I think that he's not gonna be able to fold any 2-pair here. He's just not gonna put me on ace king very often, or he can't put me on a straight very often. He probably thinks I 3-bet ace king most of the time, and yeah, he's not gonna fold 2-pair, so I can raise pretty big there. Okay guys, so I think I'm gonna wrap up the video now. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And I'll see you guys next time.